Good evening and welcome to the April 8th Special City Council meeting. And we'd like to let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. We are sorry for being just a few minutes tardy. We had a few minutes go over in our study session. We will turn the time to Vice Chair Gochnour for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'd now like to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is some recognitions, the first of which is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we've asked Councilmember Wicks if she would read that for us.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. This is a joint proclamation of the Ogden City Council and Mayor, and it is declaring April 2014 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ogden City. And it reads as follows. Whereas, although all children deserve to experience and enjoy a carefree and innocent childhood, child abuse is a serious and growing problem affecting more than 11,500 of Utah's children annually. And whereas, child abuse respects no racial, religious, class, or geographic boundaries. Domestic violence-related child abuse continues to be the most prevalent form of child abuse in Utah, and the incidence of sexual abuse follows as the second most common form of abuse. And whereas a child is abused or neglected every 38 minutes in the state of Utah. Last year, there were 737 supported cases of child abuse, resulting in 1,174 victims of child abuse in Weber County alone. And whereas statistics show threats to Utah's children and families cross over several program lines, resulting in further costs for the state. 31% of the children in custody of the Division of Child and Family Services are there because of substance abuse by a caregiver. And whereas preventing child abuse depends upon the efforts of Utah residents to make a positive, substantial impact on the children today who will become the leaders of tomorrow. And whereas all Ogden City residents are encouraged to become more aware of child abuse within their respective communities, learn how to prevent it, and actively encourage and support parents to raise their children in a safe, nurturing environment. And whereas Ogden City encourages businesses and individuals to support Prevent Child Abuse Utah in their important mission to prevent child abuse throughout the state. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell do hereby proclaim April 2014 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ogden City. We encourage residents to join Prevent Child Abuse Utah in becoming advocates for children to create a society where child abuse is not tolerated. We ask everyone to actively foster a caring community which will protect our children and end child abuse and neglect. And so with that, I would make a motion to adopt the joint resolution, joint proclamation.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Wicks, seconded by Councilmember Garner, for approval of this joint proclamation, and this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
And I know we have Trina Taylor here with Prevent Child Abuse Utah, and I have to tell you, this dates both of us. When I started working for the Child Abuse Prevention Center, which became Prevent Child Abuse Utah 16 years ago, she was my coworker, and now she's the director. So she's here if she'd like to say some words.
Would you like to come forward?
Thank you very much, Mayor Caldwell and City Councilman. We're pleased and honored that we're able to do this year after year, and I'm very happy that Ogden City steps up every year, and they might be the first one to call us and ask us about the proclamation, and just take an active and a proactive approach as we try and serve the entire state. So we're happy to be here in Ogden and to be a part of the community. We know that we can all play a part in child abuse prevention. It's not just a problem, it's really an epidemic. And so we do everything that we can to educate and to educate children, and to also serve families in inner city Ogden to keep them together. And we know that children thrive in their own environment, and do that as much as we can, and in keeping their, I guess, the things that are most important to them have to remain first, and their safety always has to remain first. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will you, just for the public, will you tell them what the blue pinwheels are?
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to. So the Pinwheels for Prevention is a national campaign. The pinwheel is the happy symbol of a childhood that every child deserves. It's kind of that carefree child frolicking through the field type of a symbol. And so we encourage you to go to preventchildabusutah.org if you want a pinwheel garden, and we can get those for you so you can plant those. And yes, Amy and I have worked together. We've been here a long time, so it's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you do for.
And we have this for
making
you.
it
And I
work
know
for
it's
that.
on your wall in your office, so I just swapped this one out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next item is a proclamation for the International Administrative Professionals Day. And we've asked Councilmember White if she would
I would
read that one.
I would.
But before she does, there are quite a number of names, and we would ask that as your name is read and recognition is given, if you'd stand at that point, and Amy Sue has a copy of the proclamation we'd like to give to you. Okay?
Thank you, Chair Heyer. This is a joint proclamation of Ogden City Council and Mayor declaring April 20th to the 22nd or 26th, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Week, and Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Day in Ogden City. Whereas administrative professionals play an essential role in coordinating the office operations of businesses, government, educational institutions, and other organizations, and whereas Administrative Professionals Week is observed annually in workplaces around the world to recognize the important contributions of administrative support staff, and is sponsored by the International Association of Administrative Professionals. And whereas Administrative Professionals Week 2014 is focused on honoring the office professionals who make offices work, reflecting the integral and central role that office professionals play in modern business. And whereas we recognize the following administrative professionals who are involved with the International Association of Administrative Professionals, IAAP, Wasatch Chapter, and our own professionals at the city who provide these invaluable services. We also extend our sincere appreciation to the countless other administrative professionals who make a difference throughout the Ogden area. Jill Anderson, Mary Ann Bowles, Jeanette Borkland, Lisa Brinkerhoff, Lisa Bromley, Marie Cavalcanti, Shauna Dayton, Teresa Doubleday, Danielle Edwards, Sharon Erickson, Tamar Flint, Betty Hall, Jean Harding, Mavis Howley, Kaylin Hill, Marcy Hodson, Randy Hutchinson, Anya Jackson, Meg Callis, Barbara Kett, Amber Lindquist, Jeanette Lowe, Maida Maher, Gina Nesbitt, Tina Navarez, Jesse Ocho, Sylvia Orozco, Teresa Patterson, Simone Penrod, Xavier Reyes, Diana Robinson, Angel Rosero, Lori Russell, Michelle Scripp, Cindy Shawley, Trudy Simpson, Tracy Singleton, Sandra Spicker, Laura Stevens, Vasadi Uli, Cindy Waylath, Sharon Woodis, and Abby Zampredi. Pedri. Sorry. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim the week of April 20th to 26th, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Week, and Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Day, saluting the valuable contributions of all the administrative professionals in the workplace. We call on our employers to support continued training and development for administrative staff, recognizing that a well-trained workforce is essential for success in today's business world. With that, I make a motion to declare April 20th, 26th, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Week and Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014 as Administrative Professionals Day in Ogden City.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Stevens, for approval of this joint proclamation. And this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That passes. Thank you. There was more that went with it, but it's only clapping.
I wish I was better at names.
Well, you did pretty well. Thank you for doing that. The next item on our agenda is a request to be on the agenda, C-SPAN City Tours, Ashley Hill. Welcome.
My goodness, y'all, I'm running everybody off. All right, I have a captive audience up here, though. So my name is Ashley Hill. I'm here from the C-SPAN Cities Tour. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. And I want to, first of all, thank all the council members and the city of Ogden and Mr. Mayor, who has heard my speech, by the way, so I'm going to need you to pretend like this is brand new information. Thank you for having us here in your city this week. I also want to thank our business partners at Comcast. We've enjoyed a long business and educational partnership with your local Comcast, and it's actually because of them that our cities tour, which I'll explain in a minute, is able to visit your city. C-SPAN, for those of you who might not know, was actually created by the cable industry in 1979. And we're a nonprofit organization. And the mission for C-SPAN was to give viewers direct access to their lawmakers, which I think is something all of you could probably get behind. And so we have a lot of resources at C-SPAN, but there are a few things that we don't have. Number one, we don't use any taxpayer money. We don't use any government money. We don't have commercials, and we definitely don't have editorializing. So it truly is a one-of-its-kind service. So since we created C-SPAN, we have expanded to include C-SPAN 2 and C-SPAN 3. Those channels house our American history TV programming and our book TV programming on weekends. And that kind of brings me to why we're here in Ogden this week. Just as C-SPAN strives to make Washington, D.C. accessible to the rest of the country, our C-SPAN Cities Tour looks to visit small to mid-sized cities like your own and turn the spotlight on those cities and let our national audience see a place that they otherwise wouldn't get to see on our channel. We do so by producing pieces that highlight each city's history, which I know Ogden has a ton of, as well as its nonfiction literary life. And we not only hope to introduce America to what makes each city so great, but we hope to teach the people who live there maybe something they didn't know about their own city. And that is definitely going to prove to be hard here in Ogden. I think everyone that I've met so far, people have stopped me on the street because they've seen my C-SPAN van, and they've been like, you really have to do a story about 25th Street, or you really have to talk to this person. And it's been so great how warm and welcoming your community has been so far. And I also just have to say, as a sidebar, I love how beautiful it is here. I love your scenery. It doesn't love me so much. I'm having a lot of allergies, but it's worth it to wake up and go outside and see those mountains. And I drove out to Antelope Island a couple days ago, and I saw bison grazing, and it's like, that's what you see in an Old West movie. That's not what you see in person. It's amazing. Last night I did indoor skydiving down the street at the Solomon Center. You have a lot to offer here in Ogden, and we're really excited to continue to uncover that as we're here for the remainder of the week and to present that to our viewers. So you might be curious about what it is we're going to be covering while we're here in town. And so I'm going to give you just a little taste. So our American History TV videographer is going to focus on the history of Union Construction Company, or Utah Construction Company, and their ties to the Hoover Dam. We're going to be working closely with Weber State Special Collections to do that story. We're also going to talk about the World War II German POW camp at Ogden's Defense Depot, also Ogden's beginnings as Fort Buenaventura. We're going to visit sites that are important to Ogden's rail history and the Transcontinental Railroad, including Promontory's Summit. And we actually spoke with some folks down at Union Station today at their State Railroad Museum. They've been a great resource. I can't say enough nice things about our time with Union Station. And we're also going to take a look at John M. Browning's firearms with another person there at Union Station, Darwin Brimhall, in the museum there as well. So Union Station is going to get a lot of action on C-SPAN coming up. Our Book TV videographer is going to talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis with Eric Sweden and his book, When Angels Wept. She's going to speak to Weber State's Susan Matt about her book, Homesickness in American History. And if you haven't read that book, I definitely recommend it. It's so interesting. She takes a look at history, and you think of these pioneers as being rough and tumble, but they actually had a little soft spot, and she looks at American history through that lens of being homesick, which, as someone who travels around the country for a living, I can certainly relate with. We're also speaking with Val Hawley on his book, 25th Street Confidential, the story that everyone says we have to cover about 25th Street's rough and rowdy past. And a man named John Salido about his book, History of Utah Radicalism. I also had the chance to kind of get a sense of the city with an interview with your mayor that will air on our Washington Journal program coming up in early May as well. So every piece we shoot will air on a special Ogden weekend on C-SPAN 2 and 3, and that's on Comcast May 3rd and 4th. So set those DVRs. If for some reason you do miss it, it will be housed indefinitely on our C-SPAN video library with a special landing page on our C-SPAN Cities website as well. So that is cspan.org/local content. That will go up the weekend of May 3rd and 4th as well. And if that wasn't enough, we're doing extensive social media while we're here. Our handle is at C-SPAN Cities on Twitter. So if you have Twitter, please give us a shout. Give us some story suggestions. Give us some restaurant recommendations. I'm always looking for those when I visit a town. And then in addition to all of our televised pieces, our work with Comcast has allowed us to do extensive community outreach as well. Today I spoke with your Rotary Club in a restaurant where you can sit in a covered wagon. That's a new one, and I was into it. And I've done presentations to Ogden Chamber of Commerce coming up. I also get to go into area schools. At C-SPAN, we think that you're never too young to be involved in politics or have an opinion or be informed. So I get to speak with students about our C-SPAN Student Cam documentary competition, which encourages students in groups of 3 to 5 to create their own small documentaries about a topic that we give them every year. And this year it was, what would you like to say to Congress? And it really is an empowering thing because students sometimes think that their opinions don't matter. They think they can't create change in their own communities, but we think they can create change on a national level. So it gives them that opportunity to do so. Again, I want to thank the City of Ogden for participating, and I really hope that you'll all tune in May 3rd and 4th. We hope that we can do your great city justice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. This is really exciting.
And actually, we have.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so kind. The rest of them are here. Oh my gosh. Well, they're not here right now. They're on shoots, but I will pass this along. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And enjoy the restaurants. There's plenty of good food here.
You're going to have to stay longer if you're going to hit all the good restaurants.
Maybe I will. Maybe we'll have a new resident.
There you go. All right. We now go into the approval of minutes. The first is the closed executive session of January 21st, 2014, and the regular meeting of January 28th, 2014. Vice Chair Grockner.
Thank you. I have reviewed those and found them to be accurate.
This is the joint work session of February 19th, 2014. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Mr. Chair, they're correct.
And the study session and regular meeting of February 25th, 2014. Councilmember Wicks.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. I reviewed those and found them to be correct.
And the work session of February 25th, 2014. Councilmember Garner.
Yes, Chair Heyer, I've reviewed those and found them to be correct.
And the regular meeting of March 4th, 2014. Councilmember White.
Yes, I've reviewed those, and I found them to be correct. And with that, I'd make a motion to accept the approval of the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Wicks for approval of the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We hit our common consent portion of our agenda, and there are those two items. Is there any
I'll go
discussion?
ahead and make a motion that we adopt item A and item B on common consent and set the public hearings for May 6th on the first one and April 22nd on the second one.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Gochner, seconded by Councilmember Garner for approval and set the public hearings. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. That passes. We now have two public hearings. The first is concerning the fiscal year 2014 budget amendment. And the annual action plan amendment for fiscal year 2013-2014. So,
Larry Johnson will be handling both of these public hearings
okay, great. Well,
items.
welcome.
Thank you. The purpose of this particular budget opening is to adjust the fiscal year 2013-14 budget to concur with the amended annual action plan for fiscal year 2014. And this particular budget amendment increases the total city budget by $4,262,200. So we request the adoption of ordinance 2014-12. Any questions before the public hearing?
Any questions for Ms. Johnson? Guess not. Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. If you have any comments concerning this item, please come forward.
Seeing no movement, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, you have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any further discussion?
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2014-12.
I second it.
Okay, we've got a motion for adoption of this ordinance 2014-12 by Vice Chair Gochner, seconded by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. It's unanimous. Next item is concerning fiscal year 2014 budget amendment, capital improvement projects.
This ordinance proposes to amend the fiscal year 2014 through 2018 capital improvement plan by adding a CIP project, EN Engineering 094, and this project had been included in the fiscal year 2015 plan. However, since external funding has already been received, the project needs to be expedited into the fiscal year 2014. The ordinance also increases the fiscal year 2014 budget by recognizing and appropriating external funding received from the Weber Area Council of Governments for the CIP project that I just mentioned above, as well as the transfer of general fund balance to pay for the 32nd Street sidewalk and the additional funding needed to rebuild the Lauren Farr Park Pavilion. The general fund balance would also be used to pay additional property and infrastructure costs relative to the Ogden 20th Street Investors LTDA incentive. And all these costs have been detailed in the schedules that you had in your packet. This budget opening increases the total city budget by $3,797,044, and so we would respectfully request the adoption of ordinance 2014-11.
Any questions for Ms. Johnson? Okay, thank you. Pardon? Oh, yeah. If there's any comments concerning this item from the public, now would be the time.
Seeing none, I will make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion, Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember Garner to close public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are any opposed? Okay. Further discussion?
Seems there's no further discussion. I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2014-11.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Garner, seconded by Councilmember Blair, to approve proposed ordinance 2014-11. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. Next item is reports from the Planning Commission. I assume we're going to have Mr. Montgomery?
Hey, that's a good choice.
Okay.
Mr. Chair and members of the council, what you have before you tonight is a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding a change to the sign ordinance. You may recall last year we amended the sign ordinance to allow banner and temporary signs in the city. Since we've been regulating that ordinance and development has been using that provision, we've had some businesses raise concerns about their exclusion from the temporary sign, which is basically the A-frame, the menu board type sign. And as we looked at their concerns, we felt they had some legitimate items that we ought to look at addressing. And so before you tonight is a revision to allow businesses that are in the C2 and C3 zones to also have these A-frame signs under special conditions. Let me just put this up here. I don't know that that's going to focus, or it will eventually. These are the two situations as we're looking at revising the ordinances the Planning Commission is recommending to you to consider, is to allow in the C2 and the C3 zones businesses to have A-frame temporary signs either in front of the building in the sidewalk area of a distance of 3 feet from the building or 5 feet from the curb line, provided there's a 6-foot walking path clearance, that they could have A-frame signs, one per business. So many of the C2 and C3 areas, as you think along Washington Boulevard and some of the other streets, have this situation where you have buildings clustered together right up to the sidewalk. So this would allow them that same advantage which is allowed in the downtown area. The other is situations where you may have clusters of businesses in a mall-type setting or a shopping center setting where they have a large sidewalk in front of their business, and they would also like to put A-frame signs on that sidewalk. So this allows either of those options to occur under this proposed ordinance. The second part of the ordinance that's before you tonight looks at making a revision to the special event banner provision. Now, the special event banner provision is something different from regular business sign. This is for civic, religious, festive occurrences, allowing a special banner to be put up by an organization or property owner. And the present regulation says you can have that up 15 days for that special event. As you think about it, it seems like Christmas decorations are up before Halloween now, way before 15 days. And the discussion we had with the Planning Commission was it seems that with the change of banner materials, they're more sturdy, they seem to not fray, they seem not to lose their color like the old materials used to, that the concerns we had early on with banners as business signs and the revisions we've now made, that also ought to apply to these banners for special occasions, that they also have a longer life now. And to limit them, not only for the life of the material, but because of the event, seems to be restrictive. And so the planning staff had recommended that we revise that 15-day limit and not have a limit, just let the special events change as they will. Understand they have to keep them maintained, keep them in neat fashion, and have that maintenance requirement. The Planning Commission, as they looked at the staff's recommendation, felt it would be more appropriate to put a 90-day limit, to change the 15-day limit to a 90-day limit for a special event occurrence. This would mean that a no-fee permit would be applied for that special event for every 90-day occurrence when they want to put that banner up. And that is the Planning Commission's recommendation to you. There were 2 commissioners who voted no. One felt the 15-day was appropriate. The other felt that the not having a time limit was appropriate. It wasn't they were against the idea. They just felt the different timeframes were more appropriate. So the Plan Commission's recommendation to you is to approve the revisions to the C2 and C3 zone to allow the temporary A-frame signs under the conditions I described, and to revise the special event banner for a 90-day time limit. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Montgomery? I got one that just occurred to me. In as much as these materials are lasting so much longer than they used to, and maybe I'll use an example of this outside of our community so it doesn't, church puts up a banner, drive-through prayers, and it's up pretty well continually. How would, if that were in our community, how would that apply? How would this ordinance apply to that?
That's a good question. I don't know that fit under the special event category.
That's kind of what I'm wondering, is if there are some situations that they put up a banner for that you would expect to be for a special occasion, but it's not. It's there ongoing. Does that then eliminate this as the ordinance that governs that?
I don't think we really looked at that, because the changes that we made were to business signs. For the temporary signs, for the banner signs, are all business related. Where a church is located.
Well, you mentioned in the study session about churches. And
yeah,
that's what made me start to think about this.
Yeah, where a church is in a generally residential zone, they have a limited amount of square footage, and our present ordinance says it has to be a permanent type sign. So we really don't have a provision that would allow that at the present time. And this revision would not allow that.
Look at.
And I wondered if that's something that maybe needs to be reviewed outside of this ordinance. Maybe even because it then goes to square footage of sign.
Correct.
And all those kind of things should apply. But I think probably some businesses may be able to squeak this through, the same way. And whether that's appropriate or not is maybe up for debate.
Because, again, with our present ordinance, non-conforming uses, in other words, commercial uses in a residential zone, we don't allow the banner signs. Even the revisions we made still do not allow the banner signs in those situations. So that may be something we want to take a look at, too, as we tweak things.
All right. Well, thank you. Sorry to throw you that curve.
No, that's fine. No, I just hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Montgomery? Okay. Would like to accept public input on this. If there's anybody that has something to say about this item, could you please come up and give us your name and address?
I just have a quick question. My name is Adele Simon. I live at 2042 Jackson Avenue. Would this apply to private residences or just business? You know what I'm saying? Because he mentioned like Christmas decorations. People put up their Christmas decorations before.
We'll let administration. We'll let Mr. Montgomery comment to that when we're all finished. Is that all right?
That's just fine. I was just.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
My name is Patricia Bohr Stevens, and I have resided at 3619 Van Buren since 1971. Last year, June 2013, I received a notice of code violation regarding my for rent sign. And one of the codes was 18311, and since that's on your agenda, I was under the impression that, according to the code, that you cannot have an off-premise sign. In other words, a sign on one property directing you to another property. And unfortunately, I'm the second house from the corner on Van Buren, and all of the traffic is on 36th Street. And when people are driving down 36th Street, they're not looking this way to see if there's a sign. In fact, the only night we have traffic is when the orchestra plays at the college once a year. And then I see lots of cars. So I have a duplex in the back of my home that's not visible from the street. And in 42 years, I've tried the signpost, never got a phone call. Used to pay the Standard Examiner, and the phone calls I got were always from ineligible tenants. Tried KSL.com, have never gotten a phone call. Oddly enough, for 42 years, every tenant I've ever received was from my sign. So back in the day, before we had all these ordinances, I used to put mine on the telephone pole. Then I found out that they made an ordinance, so I went and paid $200 for a beautiful, professional metal sign, and with the permission of my neighbor, I put my sign 9 feet from the curb. We have no sidewalk, so that people will see it and call me. I have letters from present and past tenants stating that...
You could give those to...
Oh, okay.
Thank
To the
you.
council members. I already mailed one to Caitlin, so she has one, along with a letter explaining my situation. And so I need to have an off-premise sign to be able to make a living. I'm 68 years old, and now my rentals, which have been my investment all my life, they are my retirement. And if I cannot rent them, I cannot pay my property taxes. And I have supported this city and been an excellent citizen all these years, and I would like to get some support back from my city. So what I propose is, since man needs sign, and it's in our innate nature to look for signs, whether they be the Star of Bethlehem or smoke signals or totem poles, we always have to have signs. But if we can do it where we work in a cooperative way, that would be great, because then I can support you and you can support me. So, one time I parked in the wrong place and I came out and there was a ticket, and you're not supposed to park where there's lines. Well, I didn't know that that was part of handicapped, and I paid a $50 ticket. So what I propose is if you put a yard sale sign and your address is on it, you're going to get a $25 fine, no questions asked, because you know what? I never parked in one of those striped places again. So this would generate revenue for the city rather than sending, you've broken the code. And so you print all this on a paper and you mail it to me, and then I have 15 more days to not be in compliance. And according to one of your code enforcements, 17 days, because they don't pick signs up on the weekend. And so I would be willing, since I have to go online and file for a business license for my apartments, why not go online and ask you for a 2-week or a 30-day temporary permit, pay for it with my Visa, print out my permit number, I can put it on the corner of my sign, I've paid for a permit, which means I'm not only in compliance, but cooperating with the city that at the end of my 15 or 30 days, I'm going to take my sign down, and also try to deal with the problem of all these ugly signs, yard sale, garage sale, whatever. Just fine them $25 because they won't do it again. Because if you break the law, you go to court and you pay a fine. You control human behavior, adult behavior, through our pocketbook. So start doing it that way, and then put it in the utility bills and the newspaper, inform people. We now have where you can apply for a temporary sign. But I need to have my sign, so I do need the off-premise ordinance changed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Montgomery, would you care to address those two concerns?
In regards to the first question about the house decorations, this ordinance is regarding business advertising, commercial and non-residential items. And so we really don't look at home decorations as anything we would be regulating. The only things we do with home signage is free speech signage in terms of size or political signage in terms of time frame. But as far as house decorations and banners that they may have for festive events, that this provision is regulated more towards businesses and non-residential
Or it wouldn't
activities.
apply to residences and...
Correct.
Great.
As far as the second item, what would have to happen is a petition to actually, again, look at amending the sign orders to look at whatever proposals that she has.
Now, as far, where she mentioned the ordinance amending sections 18.3.11, what is that amendment? And
I don't know, I haven't
just
seen
kind of
that,
curious
so I'm
as to
not
why
sure.
it showed up for this, so.
From what I understand, the issue is, of course, of having a rental sign on other property than your own, which is an off-premise sign at that point.
Okay.
There may be the other issue. I know that early on what took place with this was it was actually in the right-of-way rather than on private property, too. And I
But
think that was
do-
an earlier discussion.
But do we enforce that? I mean, I see all kinds of like real estate, I mean, they're placed there by real estate agents and they're not even where they should be. Do we enforce that with them?
Generally, we're picking them up and putting them in the back of the truck if they're in the right-of-way.
Would there be something stopping her from putting up a sign on her neighbor's yard that said, "Rent my neighbor's house"? With the phone number, I mean.
Well, then you get into the issue of content neutral, that whole debate of going back and forth. We'd have to look at that option. But for right now, the way we define off-premise signage is this advertising something that's not on the premise. And so that's where this issue began, was that idea that it's for rent, but it was not that property where the sign was located at.
So would she visit your office to make a petition for any amendment
Well,
to that?
basically, the petition would have to be filed with the recorder's office to amend the sign ordinance. I mean, that's the normal procedure that everyone follows in making amendments to the ordinances.
I kind of suspect that maybe you ought to have a chat with her after the meeting and kind of explain to her some of the things that are, why the ordinance is the way it is, perhaps. Maybe that would help.
Oh, we have.
Okay, well then, enough said. I guess she always has that option to petition for the ordinance to be changed, but.
And what is the process once she petitions? Does it go to the planning commission?
So then, we'd put a notice in the paper about a public hearing with the Planning Commission to amend the sign ordinance. And then the Planning Commission review it, make a recommendation to you, and then you'd have the final hearing to consider what action to take on that recommendation from the Planning Commission.
And are there any state regulations that guide that we have to follow?
In terms of?
Not the petition, but on the off-premise sign?
We would just have to balance that with the regulations we have now in our city ordinance regarding off-premise signage, which generally refers to more things like billboards. Those are the main off-premise sign regulations we have right now. And so you may be opening up that discussion with billboard companies also about then how do you set certain standards and how can you limit us, and you're not going to limit citizens of off-premise signage because our business is off-premise signage. So you will have those discussions.
I mean, I realize the challenge with the billboard companies and their lobbyists and our ordinances, but it just seems kind of silly that, we have a coffee shop that's actually a great addition to the neighborhood that, they're not able to place a sign, one property west of them with permission of the property owner to indicate that they're there. I mean, Councilmember Stevens even thought that they'd closed because their sign was gone. And I think a lot of people think that. You see temporary signs up for open houses and things like that, and we're not tearing those up and taking them away. I just think there has to be some sort of middle ground where you're not dealing with issues related to the billboard companies, and we're able to allow people to do what I think is pretty reasonable, have something up temporarily, or in the case of the business, something small and not obtrusive. I mean, it just...
And those are things we have to balance out as we go through if we have a petition.
I mean, it'd be nice to see some sort of solution to those problems.
If I might just speak to that, in my former life as a planning commissioner, we spent hours and hours and hours debating this very issue, because what you say is absolutely true. There's some things that seem to be, you would love to not regulate this much, but it's that issue of what comes with it that becomes the real problem. Now, I don't know if you have some new insight or anything you want to look at, it would be wonderful if we could address this issue.
Or if other communities have managed to strike a balance with what they're able to, with some sort of allowance in their code.
Right, and I think it's one of those things that, and I'll just go back to it, that we could, look at it and on our own, but, we've got certain work projects we're doing, so a petition is always a way to bring things quickly, because once a petition is filed, then we have certain time frame we've got to respond to that petition. Otherwise, if it becomes part of our work program, it may be a few years down the road in terms of priority. But a petition will always bring something up quicker.
Yeah, my fear with the petition, though, is you'll just deny the petition. I mean, not that, I think you'd do that, but instead of working towards a solution, it's easier to just say no.
Well, I'd kind of go back as you are the ones who will have that final say.
Yeah.
So it'll be your comfort level.
So Greg, the primary issue I think here is the off-premise, isn't it? Isn't that just the one key thing in here that? So with that, a real estate agent can have a for lease sign just in front of a piece of property or on a corner.
Right. We allow signs in residential zone, for sale, for lease, on the property where that's happening.
So if a real estate agent put it 2 houses down from that piece of property, then they would be out of compliance also.
Like the open house signs you see?
Yeah, those are
shouldn't be
like I said,
there.
we have those violations going on.
Yard sale.
Yeah, and the problem is there's so many of them that they just don't get to them all.
Well, they usually happen on weekends when code enforcement's not.
He mentions to go online to receive permission or pay a fee for the opportunity of that sign. Have we ever?
We're not there yet. We're trying to work towards that in terms of licensing and permits and that, but we're not quite there yet.
Maybe what we ought to do is to just let's talk about it some more. But I think we're kind of outside the realm of what we're here to discuss with this banner sign issue. But Ms. Stevens will understand that we are trying to solve the problem that you have. We're sympathetic and would like to help you if we can, but it won't be with this particular resolution today. So is that
correct?
A fair way to go?
Because this was not an item that was petitioned, went through the Planning Commission, the hearing.
Right. Okay.
But I believe there are issues that we need to review and look at that would be amendment to this process. So.
Okay.
Opportunity.
Point of process, is there a reason to hold on this and talk about the other things, or do you?
I can't think there would be.
Probably not.
We can change it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't really addressing the off-premises sign issue anyway. So.
Well, and when it was dealt with on January 8th, I mean, I think we probably have a responsibility to address this in a timely manner.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to add that I spoke with Susie Van Hooser, and at her advice, she told me...
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but before I neglected to tell you that you had 3 minutes, and we went way past that. and we're now kind of past the point
Oh,
where.
okay. Well,
we
I
have
was
public
told to
input.
come directly to the city council on this and bypass the $220 fee, and I was advised to do so by Susie Van Hooser, Gordon Sack, Greg Scowthorne. Okay, and these are people that work for the city.
Right, thank you.
So I think a point of clarification maybe, I mean, if it becomes a work project, it just gets into the queue and it could take several years versus a permit. So, I mean, we can certainly request that it get in the queue. So,
It
but
just
if
may
it's
take too
urgent
long.
for you, then a permit might be a better way to go.
You mean the application?
Sorry, the application.
For amendment. Okay. Do we have any discussion concerning proposed ordinance 2014-15?
I don't think there is any discussion, and with that, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2014-15.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Cochner, seconded by Councilmember Garner for approval or to accept this proposed ordinance 2014-15. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gochner?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes. Okay, next item is reports from administration. Fiscal year 2014 budget amendment, Grant Avenue Promenade. We had a little discussion as to how you pronounce that.
We're going to have Laurie and Justin kind of team this to explain it.
Great.
And I know how to pronounce their names.
Good.
I did consult with my French friend, and it is promenade.
Promenade.
Okay.
Unless you're trying to get it to rhyme with lemonade.
Right. Like the emphasis on the D.
Sorry, excuse me. The purpose of this ordinance is to appropriate additional funding for the Grand Avenue Promenade in the amount of $2,166,330. This additional funding is derived from a transfer of legal and professional and technical funds in the amount of $25,000, a transfer of Class B and C road funds in the amount of $315,000, a transfer of BDO lease revenue in the amount of $1,620,000, and the redistribution of current capital improvement project funds in the amount of $206,330. The total impact to the city budget would be $3,280,000. And I'm happy to answer any questions on the budget part of it before Justin gives the explanation on the more technical and project considerations.
Questions for Ms. Johnson? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Amy for helping me with all my audio-visual things tonight. As you can see in the picture that's up on the TV screen, or maybe not, the Promenade project is to essentially make the Grant Avenue corridor an active transportation complete streets corridor. It will include dedicated bike lanes, separated by landscaped islands. We'll be narrowing down traffic lanes, reducing speeds, and also creating a pedestrian corridor. There's a lot of expensive items in doing this. We're looking at making all the intersections except for the state intersection concrete and decorative. We're also looking at making the walking concrete areas have decorative bands or items to them. And also we're including in some areas mid-block crosswalks to have pedestrians safely access and have connectivity. These aspects are just part of a greater idea of connecting this all the way from essentially just north of the river to 25th Street. The area is going to be lit. The lighting alone is a very large sum of money to make sure that people can walk down here, they can feel safe, they can be seen, we can have good, safe interaction between bicyclists and pedestrians and bicyclists and cars and pedestrians. The landscaped islands. You can see the landscape islands will also be used to help buffer stormwater and collect it through and have it drain and filter in naturally. We'll also have collections in the bike lanes. The bike lanes themselves are going to be 7 feet wide. The buffer strips or the landscape islands are going to vary anywhere from 11 to 7 feet. And we'll have the corridor be able to, you can kind of see kind of the banner hanging off one of the light poles. It'll be something that is one of a kind in the state so far in being dedicated and beautified this way.
So are we going to plant water-wise plants in those islands? Or are they going to be daylilies or whatever those are that are planted?
No, the trees are going to be a tree called ginkgo. Mm-hmm. And there's also going to be a lot of various plants. But one of the things with the plantings is the plantings are going to be such where they'll also be an aesthetic item with how they are aligned and put in. But they need to be able to resist salt in the wintertime from the roadway. And the islands themselves will also include an irrigation system to make sure that we can help promote the growth and get them healthy and vibrant looking. But we also want to be able to utilize them to be a point source buffer pollution before the water just gets discharged into the storm drain and ends up going to the river.
Are we planting water-wise plants, or will they need to be watered a lot?
Is similar to what we did on the river restoration project. We want to make sure that they are established in growth, but water-wise plants are into consideration. They're not, the whole thing is not water-wise plants. There are some plants that will need water.
Okay. Is there a reason why we wouldn't use water-wise planting on that if we're trying to promote conservation and environmental sensitivities in our community? It seems like that would be a good place to do some education and place landscaping that's maybe a little bit different than what we have everywhere else.
Yeah, and it is going to be a little bit different landscaping than other places, but the idea is with the architects this is the same architect who did City Creek down in Salt Lake, where they want to have a variety of plants to kind of set off the feel and the ambiance of going down there. They want to be able to have the trees grow up and cover the areas of the bike path, and also grow up tall enough to not be in the way of cars. So, but that was one of the things of the recommendation of the design architects, is to include, I mean, there's going to be grasses that come up that are water-wise plants, but there's also going to be some other bushes and other things that are not, just to
And we'll have
make it
separate
decorative.
irrigation for each of those, or different I'm just trying to figure out how you mix.
So
how are you going to
essentially-
mix all of those and not have a maintenance nightmare? I mean, I don't know. I just personally would like to see, if we're investing the money in this and we're trying to make it kind of a centerpiece of things, it makes sense to maybe show people what can be done with plants that don't need a whole lot of water.
And I think that's something that's actually being addressed by the water utility manager. He's looking at doing something up at the water treatment plant and also up at the reservoirs.
Well, that's fine, but this is a very conspicuous spot where it would make sense to put something where people can see that water-wise landscaping can be attractive.
Maybe what we ought to do is have you tell us, what is the criteria that the plants are, how they're picked? What are you trying to make? You've mentioned salt tolerance.
Water-wise plants that are salt tolerant.
Greg Montgomery has given a lot of input on the type of plants that he wanted to see in there, and so maybe that's a better question for Greg to answer on the plants.
Maybe we ought to introduce him as our resident landscape architect.
We'll go ahead and talk about that. What we're looking at is a net and drip. So that's how we're approaching it. We're not doing a spray. We're not trying to, keeping the water to the root system. And we are looking at more of the fescues that have a heat tolerance. So sometimes when people say water-wise, they think, okay, well, that means I'm not watering at all. No.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, and I think that's just the clarification, because we're looking at plants that are heat tolerant because of the road situation, that also take the salts, and that are done on a very root irrigation only. We're not trying to water everything else around it. So with the fescues we're looking at, and different types of fescues, they really do fall in the water-wise category. It's just we're looking at like 3 or 4 varieties of the grasses and shrubs. Some of the things we're looking at may be I call it the skunk bush, but the low-growth sumac and those type of things, which, again, are water-wise plants, but we have the variety of textures. So we're looking like a zone texture along, so you'll have a low growth, medium growth, and an upper growth of maybe 2.5 feet in those islands. But they all have the same water need based on the drip. So we don't have different zones in each planting area.
Okay, well,
we just have one zone
that's what I was
to
asking.
water.
Okay. And they will be,
And it's all the Netafin drip.
I'm assuming, fescue doesn't
Yeah.
water.
No, they're low water users. The thing we've got to begin with is just establishing the trees. But we have a good water source once they get established pretty well to then, with the water table the way it is, to take care of the rest of the trees once we get them established. But we're looking at columnar trees out in the islands because, again, we don't want traffic branches hitting the traffic. So that's a little departure from typical water-wise, because some of the trees have lower branches that are water-wise, and we can't have those lower branches. So we want to get them established, but then they'll be able to take care of themselves after that point.
Well, and like ginkgo, once established, doesn't.
Yeah, it's served pre-dinosaur time, so it's still going strong.
It does say drought tolerant.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
have.
beautiful.
I have some in my yard.
Yeah. But the intent is the water-wise. With the drip system, the way we're designing it.
Thank you.
Okay, because you see that, and that just kind of looks like.
Right, and I don't know there are any
Well,
daylilies in the planting plan. I don't remember seeing any daylilies, but even those are drought tolerant.
They can be, but they're planted
Yeah.
everywhere. Succulents and
Yeah.
things like that. Or
Yeah,
sedums.
this is
Sedums
more
are nice.
fescues and some of the low-grow sumacs and
Okay.
that type of thing.
Thank you. Okay. This is to set the public hearing.
So with that, I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for April 22nd.
I second it.
That's Vice Chair Gartner just made a point. Justin, are you finished with your presentation? Anything else for Justin before we go to the motion?
The only suggestion I would have, Justin, and we talked about this in our work session, is once you catch your breath, that we set the other projects up in phases so we can continue on with the process from 25th Street to the river. So, and I think that'll be advantageous not only in planning the project, but also allocating the funds for that. So I think that's worthwhile to take a look at that.
Yes.
I have to throw my 2 cents in. I know this has certainly been fast-tracked and been tons of work for everybody, and boy, it's going to be just so exciting for our city. So thank you, everybody that's worked on it.
And just one other quick thing, if we're tearing up the roads and something looks bad with the pipes, we're going to fix the pipes, right?
Yeah, in fact, we did an extensive review, especially the storm drain and the sanitary sewer, to identify any issues, most of which they can all be slip-lined at a later time. But in the intersections, we are looking at some of the water lines to actually replace in the concrete intersections.
So, Councilmember Garner, you made the motion, right? Okay.
To set the public
Things are
hearing.
going on.
Yes.
Okay. Did we get a second?
I did.
Okay. We've got a second by Councilmember Blair.
No. Stevens.
Stevens. Oh, I thought you claimed it. Sorry.
I pointed.
Okay. All right. To set the public hearing on the proposed ordinance 2014-13, and this roll call vote?
Voice vote.
Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That passes. Now to public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone have anything to say to the council?
Hi, my name is Shelley Levitt. I live at 1153 24th Street. First time ever at a city council meeting, so I'm not quite sure if I'm where I'm supposed to be. So, just listening to some of the other things that were said and done, especially with the petition about the signs, if we have a suggestion for the city or we'd like to see something changed, do we go through the petition process?
Well, that would be that's a real depends.
Okay.
I think probably maybe the best way to start is to, what would you say? Where would the best place to start if they didn't know where to go?
Because I would really like to get to where I know what's going on in the city. I'd really like to be able to come in here and know what you guys are talking about. I feel like I've learned a lot. I do have some concerns or desires to see happen within the city, but I have no idea where to even start.
One key thing would be to meet with the council members who are over your area, and every
Okay.
citizen has 4 of them. And so you have 4 voices here that you could talk to and
Okay.
sit down with, and they can give you some guidance. In this case, with the ordinance, they're trying to change a
Yes.
city ordinance, so then we have to go through a process.
Yeah, and there's a city ordinance I'd love to see changed, but one, I guess I'll just throw it out there. One of the things I've seen, seeing that I have younger children, a couple of people I've spoken with, we'd like to see a child's fishing pond in the city if possible. And one of the locations I saw that would be a possibility would be the D Memorial Park. It's it's not very usable. Mostly people take their dogs to walk in the park. It's ran down, it's not there. I didn't think it would take a lot of funds to dig it out and just fill it with water and then make it a child's fishing pond. So only children, those 18 and younger, could fish there. An adult could go there with a license with a child, but not without. Was just a thought that it would kind of bring people down into that area. It would, I think, make it a little nicer. But
All right.
I just was curious as to where to start, so I'll start with my council members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I also mentioned that we have a email distribution system where we can keep you informed of what's going on each week. If you'd like, Amy, who may be there, could add you to our list, and there's a sign-up sheet
Awesome.
out there, and so we'd love to be able to keep you posted on what's going on.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Comments from the mayor?
I do have a couple of quick comments. Amy, real quick before she leaves, I'll just say Glassman Pond up by McCady Hospital is a fishing pond. We stock that every year. We do fishing events up there, and I think you're really wise to come and start with your comments here. This public comment section is exactly for that reason. You have a forum with everybody here. You can bounce those ideas off, float them out there, and see what gains traction or get some direction on where you need to go. So I applaud you for coming to the council meeting tonight, wading through it, and taking your time in your 3 minutes. That's a great way to start and to figure all of this out. So I applaud you on that. Next, I also want to say we heard the concerns regarding the sign ordinance. We understand one size does not fit all with that. There are some unique circumstances. I think that they should probably be allowable, and we're going to work with Greg to find and define some flexibility in there if we can, so I appreciate that as well. Next, I will add my voice to the choir of those thanking our administrative professionals I can say with absolute certainty that our office would not run like it does without some great people up there. I appreciate everybody, and I know there's one of those in almost every department here. We can't thank them enough for that. And then next, I will draw everyone's attention to a unique thing we have coming from the 11th to the 20th. It is Ogden City Restaurant Week. A lot of the local restaurants have come together. We talked earlier and had some comments about the unique restaurants we have here, and a lot of these owner-operated restaurants. That will go from 11th through the 20th. 2-course meals will be $8, and 3-course meals or dinners during that time will be $15. So that's a really unique bargain, a good chance to go try some unique flavors, restaurants you haven't been in but may have heard of, and they really pull out the red carpet for that event. So I'll encourage everybody to get out and experience some of our downtown flavors during that time period. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Any other comments from council members? I appreciate Mayor pushing that sign. You know, there is a need. We've seen it for a long time. There's just a concern with what it might open up. So, but if there's got to be some creative ideas that can be employed to allow reasonable signage for things. And I appreciate you working with or driving that through. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. As a reminder, their redevelopment agency will be meeting immediately following the city council meeting.